Travis, my good soul. Let's reboot yesterday, shall we? I had a video that I did, but I left the headphones in, and so it was ruined. So, Joseph Smith renamed his Church of Christ in 1834 as the Church of Latter-day Saints, because what Joseph Smith was doing was prophesying to those early Mormons about the latter days. And with all of Scriptures prophesying about the latter days, one would think that believers would want to know the precise dates for the latter days. For all, it's in the plural, so there's not just one date or multiple days. However, Roman Emperor Constantine needed a way to figure out how to destroy these Jews who were resisting dying and being exterminated under the Roman rule. And so he ordered all of the bishops of the congregations together at the first creed at the Council of Nicaea. I refer you to Joseph Smith's first vision, verse 19. And he told all of those bishops, your religion is no longer, because they were all different. They weren't the same. Everyone had a different scripture and a different interpretation and understanding of who their Christ is. And they were now being told, nope, no more. We're forming a new religion, and you're all forced to be a part of it, or you are anathematized. As there was one specific one that all the bishops were united in booting out. But thus, in creating a brand new religion called Christianity, they obviously created a brand new Christ. They named him Jesus. And the bishops, because they all had different Christs, different natures and characters, Constantine had to settle the argument. It was hot that summer. He was getting sick and tired of them taking too long. And so he created a word. Did not exist previously. He created it to finally put an end to it, to describe the nature and character of the new Jesus Christ. That word that still remains to this day in the text is homoousion. And people have tried to claim that it's similar to this word or that word. No. He made it up. And then he defined that made up word within the creed. It's all right there for all of Christianity to know what exactly the definition of that word is, and yet everybody still doesn't quite know how to define it, as they keep making many errors and thinking they know. Like the most common one I've heard of is an analogy of an egg. It has the shell on the outside, it has the white part, and then it has the yolk. 3 in 1. Nope. That is not a description of it. You can't use that description. It is wrong. The creed says, by definition, that homoousion means that Jesus Christ is not real, because he has no physical substance. Not real. And thus the reason why, during the Enlightenment period, when you get all these scientists emerging and coming up with the laws of physics, that the Catholic Church by now, because the Catholic Church is a branch off Constantine's Holy Roman Empire, collapsed and shattered to fulfill the Nebuchadnezzar's dream of the idol god, of the different metals down to the feet of iron and clay that shatter. That's Constantine, because he's part of the metal of the Roman Empire, mixing it with the clay of his Christianity, which isn't a metal. It's built on a sandy foundation, because it's not real. So it's strange how Christians are in denial of the fulfillment of that. I wonder why. But nonetheless, Joseph Smith refers to this as an abomination, and thus why he never named his church the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, because that's the great and abominable church's name. Can you make the connection with the word? Joseph Smith says that Christianity and the creation of Jesus is abominable. And so in the Book of Mormon, there's this church that forms, and it's great and abominable. Not hard to make that connection, especially when the church makes it so easy for us to make that connection, because on the keystone of the doors of the Salt Lake Temple, the headquarters temple, of which Nelson's now calling Zion, is Lucifer's symbol, which is the universal symbol of a falling star, and Isaiah in the Latin Vulgate text is included to refer to this star falling from heaven. And so how are Mormons in denial of the reality of this? Oh, right, because they believe Jesus is real, just not Constantine's real. Section 103, verse 16. Joseph Smith tells us that the Christ, he told us who he is in verse 40 of the second vision, is the learning of the Jews' Christ, not the Christian Jesus Christ, and thus his name is Emmanuel. But that he would be a human Mormon of the great and abominable church, to rescue Mormons from the great and abominable church. But still, the question on all of our lips, our chapped lips, Groundhog Day, as I have to keep repeating myself for my audience, is when are the prophecies of Scripture telling us the latter days are? Or are they just not? It's a sacred secret. Only God knows, and the Lord God surely will not reveal his secrets unto his servants, the prophets, because they're of the great and abominable church. You're supposed to be getting them from that Mormon in the great and abominable church who's supposed to rescue you from the great and abominable church. That's why Joseph Smith emphasized over and over and over again that Mormons needed to get into the practice of hearkening to him so that they would be prepared in the latter days to hearken to the latter day Christ, who was to save you. That is why none of the presidents and prophets of this church never ever reveals the latter days for you. But they keep teasing you. And there's a reason for this, is they don't want you to know that the church is the cause of Armageddon, so that they can get their kingdom back with all its abominations. All its abominations. Just think of the depravity and abominations that Lucifer's church and kingdom would consist of. And I've been warning you, as Oakes himself came out with the youth devotional, to confess this is what they've got planned for their kingdom. And he's doing it at a specific time in the latter days. Because yes, we're in the latter days. And because Mormons do not know this, they do not know who their Christ is, and thus they are not hearkening to him. And thus instead they are ripening for destruction. Right, the day that shall burn as an oven, and they that come shall burn them. Second vision. Shouldn't have to keep repeating this. This is the bicentennial year, and the church has been silent on this. And the economy is about to collapse in the United States of America. And with the fall of the economy will come the fall of the government. And guess what the church gets to do then? They get to restore their kingdom. They've already been buying up the land, as well as around the world. This is their plot, because their Christ is Lucifer. It is the big con. It is the big lie. And so, there have been many Christian religions who have emerged and given a date for the latter days and the coming of Jesus, none of which have happened. some of which took Constantine's example and created a spiritual date and a spiritual second coming. One that's not real. But they keep insisting and demanding that we all accept it as real, in denial of the science. And so the Catholic Church likewise denies science. They have to, even though the Catholic Church, I understand, just got busted in Illinois for the pastors there, who for decades have had, was it 400 pastors involved with over 2,000 boys? It's just sickening. But this is how Lucifer runs his churches, those who hearken to him. And it's not just the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints who hearkens to him. Anybody who hearkens to him are his church. And that atrocity is a clear indicator that they were hearkening to Lucifer. And they know not the voice of the true Christ they're supposed to be looking for. So, John wrote a book that's called Apocalypse, Revelation. And in chapter 12, he gives us a sign in the heavens. And there appeared a great wonder in the heaven, according to our translation. A woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered, and she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. Why did I skip those other signs? Why did I bring verse 5 to verse 3? Because you did not look in the footnotes. Joseph Smith translation for that passage. That was moved to verse 3. So, do you think that they know what's going on here? Do you think we should probably pay attention? Obviously it's yes. But in verse 1 he adds, and there appeared a great sign in heaven, in the likeness of things on the earth. You are unfamiliar with this, as the great and abominable church has removed the plain and precious parts of the Book of Mormon, as well as from Joseph's words. But in 1 Nephi chapter 1 verse 2, we are informed that the Book of Mormon is not Christian, and that we are not to interpret Jesus even though the name Jesus is used in the text. So it's not another testament of Jesus Christ. It is a prophetic book of Revelation, just like John. Oh wait, Nephi refers us to John's revelation in his vision. He says, yea, I make a record in the language of my father, which consists of the learning of the Jews. Signs in the heavens and likeness of things on the earth is the learning of the Jews called Kabbalah. It is not witchcraft, but Christianity, in order to defend their non-real Jesus, has to vilify the very authors of their text they claim as the Gospels, which they culturally appropriated and replaced the interpretation thereof. And what thank they, the Jews, for the Bible that they received from them? A quad, a quad. Mormons have a quad, and they need no more quad. Yes, that's from the Book of Mormon. They use Bible, not quad. But Mormons, in fulfilling the prophecy as Christians have, did what they did. And so the language of the Egyptians, in verse 9, and it came to pass that Lehi, in his vision, which means it's not literal history, the whole Book of Mormon is not literal history. That's what it means to be written in the learning of the Jews in Kabbalah. He saw one descending out of the midst of heaven, and he beheld that his luster was above that of the sun at noonday. Oh, just like the two personages who visit Joseph Smith. Just like the messenger who visited Joseph Smith in the second vision, which this is the bicentennial year of. This is the Egyptian god Amun, the sun god at noonday. And Emmanuel, in Paleo-Hebrew, Amun El. Amun is phonetically the same as the Egyptian deity. That is the name of the Christ. Matthew tells us this, and yet still changes his name to Jesus. Doesn't even name Isaiah, which is the reverse of Jesus. Yah of salvation. Isaiah is salvation of Yah. Which is why he was using Jesus and quoting Isaiah. Because any reader of the Jews would know to make this interpretation. That it's not Jesus that's being talked about. That it's the name meaning. He is Yah, the Hebrew God, who is to fulfill the prophecies of the latter days and save them. But they kind of have to hearken to him, and in order to hearken to him, they have to know who he is. And yet, Joseph Smith said he knows exactly who he will be, and he tells Mormons who he will be. And he tells Mormons that they aren't going to hearken to him, so he has to keep emphasizing, you need to hearken to him, or you will be utterly destroyed by the great and abominable church. And so this vision, because you were all following along, weren't you? Says he sees God sitting upon his throne. And then he sees Amun, who is the Roman equivalent of Jupiter, and then 12 other stars. Guess where that comes from? Revelation chapter 12, verses 1, 2, and 5. The Book of Mormon, as a learning of the Jews in Kabbalah, is giving us the latter day date for the beginning of the latter days. But you have to use science, not Christian interpretation, to find it. Because they didn't come right out and say it's the 23rd of September 2017, did they? But the stars and the sun and the moon are all thrown into the conjunction. That means it's a specific date. And it's a one and only date. And it was the 23rd of September 2017. And the so-called prophets, seers, revelators, not translators. They never claimed translation. It's a good thing because Nelson can't translate War of the Beans. And he's doing it on purpose. He's giving the white supremacist and replacement translations for his Jesus, who somehow we are yoked to, and that he has a higher law, which they're not coming right out and telling you, but you're supposed to be able to figure out because you're supposed to be studying your scriptures, which means you've studied section 132, even though the church, with official declaration number 1, said we are never going to teach Mormons to practice this. And yet there it is, still in section 132. It was not Joseph Smith. The great and abominable church lied to us. And then when they came out and confessed, they lied to us again. They were the ones who framed Joseph. And yet, how many Mormons and ex-Mormons have they fooled? So, that's the year of the latter days, 2017. And so it's not Zedekiah, who's having his first year, because it's not literal history. John also in chapter 19, by telling us that on the back of the white horse, an angel will stand in the sun. That is the final day of the latter days. And it determines also, because it's a solar eclipse, where on earth the great and abominable church will be, and where Zion will be restored. The mountain cities of Zion and New Jerusalem. Because solar eclipses create a path, a shadow path on earth when they occur. So when you get a solar eclipse, you know not only the date of when, but also a location of where the likeness of things on earth is to occur. And 8 April 2024 over the United States of America. And it's confirmed by all those gospel stories of Jesus, because he dies on a cross. Romans didn't use crosses, they used poles. The author was trying to teach something, prophesy about the latter days. The Emmanuel, sun god, at noonday, would create a shadow path crossing over America for the latter days. And Paleo-Hebrew knew this because their last letter of their script, alphabet, is that cross. And their first letter, which you know as A, Greeks called it alpha, is the sun path shadow pattern over America for all 3 days of darkness of the latter days. The first one was in 2017. Go figure. 21st of August, 2017. And that is the other part of the cross for the last day of darkness on 8 April 2024, which gives us the location of Zion and New Jerusalem in southern Illinois. Not Missouri, not Salt Lake City. The other one is this year, and it passes over Utah. Everything has to do with the church. 21st of August 2017 passed over Independence. Mormons also, there was that video I did about Book of Mormon evidence. At least he also caught on that it passed over Adam-on-Diamond. That was the secret headquarters of the Danites, as I've been trying to explain to you. They were mocking Joseph Smith and using it as a front for their criminal base of operations in the same pattern as they would attack in the latter days. Election fraud, causing a civil war, overthrowing the government, in which case then it was cooing Joseph Smith's religion. That's how Brigham Young became the president of the 12. His Danites chased out Thomas B. Marsh, and Brigham Young had him excommunicated. There was no milk scrapings of his wife. That was a lie by the Danites. Because Joseph Smith was locked up in Liberty Jail. He's not excommunicating him. He then, in the Joseph Smith papers, condemned Brigham and his Danites and the 12 for getting rid of the good man, Thomas B. Marsh. So the second one this year, 14 October 2023, science. How do I know? Am I a prophet? Passes over Utah. And then 8 April 2024 passes over the farm and Kirtland, Ohio. The Smith Farm, Manchester. And it also is a crossroads, because A has 2 crossroads. Travis County in Texas. If you want to play in Texas, gotta have a fiddle in the band. Yep. Named after the Alamo guy. And yeah, that's my name too, isn't it? Strange. He who is from the crossroads. That's what Travis means. If only my surname means sun god, then Mormons would know who their Christ is and who to hearken to rescue them from the great and abominable church, if they would but hearken to him. So, that's how it's done. Samson, the Sun King, if you Google search the baby name meaning, you'll get the wrong understanding of it. I did get that. Why don't you pop up to let me know? They call him the Sun Child. That is wrong, because they don't know Paleo-Hebrew. To them, it's not deciphered, so they're guessing. I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew. I am a translator. That's where the missing gift went to. If they're not going to claim it, God's going to give it to someone else. And so, the Sun King's story talks about deaths. And he's the Sun King. Deaths. Solar eclipses. So the death of the lion, 21st of August 2017, in Leo the lion. This year, 14 October 2023, his first wife burned. It's an annular eclipse in Virgo. And then next year, 8 April 2024, he is in Aries, the Ram-Lam constellation, the sacrificial ram of Abraham sacrificing Isaac. Yeah, that's a star date too, and the Book of Mormon refers to it. 600 years from the time Lehi left Jerusalem. Yeah, that's what they're referring to. That's why they talk about Abraham sacrificing Isaac in the Book of Mormon. Because that's giving a star date that reveals when the Exodus is to occur in the latter days. And it's a bit tricky. You have to know your science of astronomy and how to know of the dates of when the signs would occur. Because if you just use Christianity to interpret the scriptures, you're never going to know. It'll be a sacred secret to you. Then you're going to create a date, and you're going to be wrong, and everybody's going to laugh at you, and then you're going to come up with a spiritual explanation to justify it. So that you can keep your religion and keep your authority. And so Jupiter will be in Aries next year. But the sun will be eclipsed on the back of the white horse in Pisces, his actual birth sign, not the 5 loaves of bread Bethlehem sign in Virgo at the star Spica, the house of bread star. And so, yeah, Samson likewise is telling us all three, with some others, and I've been doing the videos for you of what they were, of the latter days. All of the scriptures are about the latter days. So no duh. But if you don't use science, you miss it. So this morning, as I did for you in the video that no sound occurred, I went over the sign in the heavens for that day that determined the one date. Because these will never happen ever again. This indicates this date for today because of the whole conjunction that is involved of every celestial body. And so we have Ophiuchids and the Beta Ophiuchids. They're at the tail of serpents, the knee of Ophiuchus. So, falling stars at the knee of Ophiuchus. Every knee shall bow, every tongue confess. That's what I would use as scripture to describe this scene. And so then we go up to Hercules, the Legendary Journeys, Babewatch BC. Awesome show. But it's close to the tail of the dragon. Revelation chapter 12. Monson died on that one. Stars fall from the tail of the dragon. Quadranted meteor showers that evening at the tail of Draco the dragon. And so here the Hercules are there on the back tail of Draco the dragon. And he's not quite Hercules yet, but he'll get there. And so, you tell a story like King David smiting Goliath. Tell a story like that. And then you have the Aquarids that are now on Pisces on the back of the white horse. Remember next year, the sun shall be darkened? Well, here the stars are falling from the heavens on the back of the white horse. And so, yes, this is a falling in battle story. And then, the Aretids in Aries. Yay! Yeah. Falling stars in the sacrificial ram constellation. So you see the pattern here? Now we have Saturn that's still at the upper thigh, near the loins of the high priest symbol Aquarius. Because in Egyptian, a man pouring water out is called a high priest. Aquarius is pouring water out. High priest. And Saturn is the father of Jupiter. God sitting upon his throne. But instead of Ophiuchus, it's the high priest constellation. The seed of the Father is the covenant promise for the latter days. But there needs to be a fall of the great and abominable church with the inverted pentagram of the falling stars. This is the final year of the latter days. See what God has done? See what he has already written in the heavens? And so then we come to Jupiter. It's finished its retrograde in Pisces and is now beginning its journey into Aries for next year's big sign. And then Mercury. That's as a government one. Mercury is the messenger of the gods and uses a trump to give his message. And it's a government sign. Remember the first year of the reign of King Zedekiah? Or if we use the Gospels, King Herod? Or if we use the Exodus of Moses, Pharaoh? Or the Philistines for Samson? Yeah, none of those are literal history. They're all symbolic prophecies of the latter days. Wouldn't you know, the name just happens to match, just as it does for Amun. And then the sun is clothing the Apis bull, Taurus, which, yes, has to do with the sacrifices as well. But this one is more specific. in that it's a sacrifice of the king for the replacement with his son. Father becomes the son becomes the father through seed. And then we get to Venus, the church. And it's right smack in the middle of the two boys, stepbrothers. The one is mortal, and the other is immortal. And as the story goes, the mortal brother dies, and the immortal brother resurrects him. And Venus, the bride of Lucifer's church, thus the Church of Lucifer, symbolized by the inverted pentagram, which just happens to be the symbol on the keystone of the doors of the Salt Lake Temple, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This is the symbol of Mormons, the church, just like Virgo is, of whom Jupiter is born out of to rescue Mormons from. And so the transition of dying and then rebirth, resurrection. All these others indicate a fall of the church. And then Mars, again, a direct name match to the bridegroom of the bride, which is Lucifer's church, the president of Lucifer's church, and it's a name match. Mars, red star. Name match. It's amazing how prophetic God is. Because Mars was at the top of the scales of judgment on the very night that Monson was fulfilling Revelation chapter 12. Because Mars succeeded him. And here we have the moon. There at the tail of the crab, which is a type of serpent. It's a crustacean, but it was understood as the serpent that bites the heel, and then Emmanuel would crush his head. It's the same concept as the scorpion crab that bites the heel of Achilles, takes him down. Poor Brad Pitt. Gets shot in the heel and dies, and then gets his head blown off in that Sandra Bullock movie. That was awesome. I watched All About Steve last night. She's not a redhead, but she makes up for it with her personality. She's not even my body type, but she makes up with it with her personality. This should teach you women something. But you didn't watch that video, did you? So you don't know what I'm talking about. So yeah, the moon for religion, because of the language of the Egyptians. The eyes of Horus, the son of Osiris, who returns to Egypt to restore the throne of his father, who was murdered by his brother, who took over the kingdom. And his name is Set. And you add king at the end of it with an N, Samson, king, son, son, king. Satan, King Set, the adversary. Major victory for Satan. His two eyes represent the word for seer in Egyptian. And wouldn't you know it, at the start of the latter-day battle to restore the throne, his right eye for government and the sun is plucked out, an eclipse. 21st of August 2017. The Egyptians are prophesying about it too. And wouldn't you know it? It's the wrong year, but I have that one boxed up somewhere. It was the ancient Egyptian religious calendar New Year. They knew. And the Jews knew. Because they're not the Babylonian Jews who were assimilated with their captivity into Babylon. And despite the book of Daniel trying to teach the Jews not to be Babylonian Jews, nonetheless, the Orthodox Judaism kept the Babylonian cultural appropriation. And they're still Babylonian Jews to this day, rather than Egyptian Jews, of which is their origin, and thus why they can't find King David, because he was there in Egypt as the pharaohs of the 18th dynasty, the David-Moses dynasty. Babylonian Judaism is keeping the Jews from knowing their Christ. Just like Christianity is keeping them with a hedge around the hedge to keep people from knowing. And so how did I figure it out? I tore down the hedges. It was simple enough. There it is, hidden behind the hedges. So yeah, the moon, religion, the left eye. And there it is, the religion symbol with the president of the great and abominable Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. At the tail, crabs don't have tails, do they? Do they? Maybe a stub. It's a crustacean. It tastes great with butter sauce. So yeah, that's today's sign. Using all of the celestial bodies, it produces this one and only date. And then I added in the prophecy of it and the revelation of it with some translations as needed, as I'm able to be a seer for you. So this was longer than yesterday's video.